This has to be the best accessory that I've added to the laser so far. Welcome to Paul's Workshop. In the last video that I did using the Lightburn software, I designed the extension feet for the FoxAlien laser. Now today I went back and made some modifications, made it look a little bit nicer, and while I was there, I went ahead and designed this one for the Sculfun S9 laser. Then the fun really began, because I wanted to be able to put these two lasers side by side and be able to engrave and see the difference. And what a difference it made. You're not going to want to miss this one, so stay tuned and follow all the way through on exactly what I did. Now I decided to go ahead and take the ones that I made last time and be able to adjust them, refine them, and set this up so that it can easily be duplicated. Now on this particular one, I'm going to make this one for the Sculfun S9 laser. And what I decided to do as far as the overall rectangle was just to make this at 40 millimeters by 160 millimeters. Now again, you can do this at any size that you want. Now on the Sculfun S9, I think the easiest way to be able to do it is just use the screw and just slip it through an existing hole that's already on the feet on the laser. Now I set these holes as far as the size. I set these at 9.3 millimeters by 5.3 millimeters. And you can really set this, again, pretty much any size that you want. I just thought this was going to be a good workable size considering the size of the screw. In addition to that, I went ahead and put a radius on this. And I put a 2 millimeter radius on these little holes for the cutouts. And I think that just makes it look a lot nicer. Now to show you how I did this radius again, I'm going to go ahead and put a radius on the corners of this. So I'm going to highlight this rectangle, and then I'm going to come down and select the radius icon. Now this has it already set for the 2 millimeters, and I'm going to keep it at that. So I can just come up and hover over it, and it puts that radius in there. It's real simple. And there you go. So that looks a whole lot nicer. And so it gives just a little bit rounding off the edge there. Now as far as positioning these, what I ended up doing, I looked at this line right here, and I'm going to select this one. And now you can see on my x-axis that it's on the 110 millimeters. And then I just took this one, and I want to go ahead and I want to center this. And you can see if I center that, it's at 98 millimeters. So basically, from the outer edge over to the center of this, I made it at 12 millimeters. Now again, I don't think this is really an exact science. You can slide this left or right if you want, and go with that. And as far as this spacing, I put these holes at a 15 millimeter distance, because as far as the laser is concerned, when you set up the z-axis for the laser, you're using the little 20 millimeter gauge to be able to do that. So these set at 15 millimeters will give you a little bit of room to be able to play with. So the last step that I'm going to do, I want to go ahead and come down to the art library, and I'm going to put the logo in here. And then I want to click this Sculfun, and we'll bring it right over here. When you use a logo from the art library, it doesn't change anything in the art library. That logo is still there. The nice thing about it though, you can take and manipulate it any way that you want for your particular needs on the project. And in this case, I'm going to cut that outer square out of it, and I'm just going to use the logo itself, and I'm going to rearrange it. I'm going to put the primary logo right here, and then I'm going to put the text underneath it, which was totally different from the original one that was actually in the art library. Now the last step is to set up the cuts for the engraving and for the cutouts. People ask all the time, what settings do you use to cut the plywood? Well guys, every machine is different. The settings that I'm going to use today for the two machines are both identical, and they get totally different results. Now I'm going to use the Sculfun S9 with the same settings as I used the 40 watt FoxAlien. and you're going to see the results are totally different. So you have to experiment, experiment, and experiment. Now we're going to go ahead and set up the leg for the FoxAlien. Now I'm going to set this one out of the way, and we're going to use the same settings. Now this is 45 millimeters by 160. So I'm going to grab the rectangle, we're going to draw out the box, we're going to set the specific size. And we're going to go step by step on how I made the extension legs for the FoxAlien. Then I'll come back up to the select menu. We'll get off of that. So this is going to be the basic size. Now on this one, the way the FoxAlien is designed, I do want to be able to have these slots. Now to make this easy and to be able to work with, I'm going to go ahead and highlight this again. And I'm going to click this left button right here so that I can set the coordinates based on this. And to me, it's just a lot easier to work with. So I'm going to set this at 140 millimeters. And I'm going to put this at the 540, which is about where it was anyway, but this gives it precise. Now, as far as these slots that I want to put in here, I'm going to make one slot right now. And this slot, I'm going to make on the y-axis, I'm going to do the same thing as this. I think I'm going to make this 5.3 millimeters. Now I want this slot where that screw can actually slide into it on the FoxAlien. And I want this to be where it actually rotates, and I had done this before. So we'll go ahead and rotate this down to 10 degrees. I think that actually worked pretty well. And we'll bring this over. Now, the real key is where you want this to start. And I think we're going to start right about here. Now I'm going to put this in the center again. If I come from this top line at the 540 millimeters, then I can actually come down 10 millimeters to the 530. And I think that's actually a good starting point. When I did this before, I went ahead and made 4 more just like it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Control C and Control V. One of the things I want you to notice, when I hit the Control V to create the duplicate, wherever the mouse is highlighted, that's where the item will appear. And that's a nice feature. So you can actually, with a little practice, get fairly close. Now I'm going to go ahead and set this up so that all of them are aligned vertically on the y-axis. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight all of them and come up to this little icon right there. This is the alignment on the vertical, and I can hit right there, line V center, which is the vertical. And by doing that, it puts all of them aligned correctly. Now the only thing I need to do is worry about the spacing. I'm sure there's many different ways to do this, but what I'm going to do is take the very simple route and use a little bit of math and just space them out on the y-axis exactly where they need to be in relationship to the coordinates that I have on the screen. Now I want these 20 millimeters apart on the center. Now after just a couple minutes, that's all done. They're centered both on the x-axis and the y-axis. Now one of the things that you want to do before you do all the copy and pasting is make sure that the little item is finished. And I want to be able to put the little radius on each end. Now, this is a little bit of repetitious work because I didn't do it correctly, but this will still work. So just going to click on the radius icon and keep the 2 millimeter radius, and I'm just going to click on each of the corners. So, lesson learned, this will just be a little bit time consuming, but not too bad. So that's all finished. The next part is I want to put that same radius on all 4 corners of the entire leg extension. So these are the small little things that you can do just to make the project look a little bit nicer, and it doesn't take a lot of time to do it. Next, let's create the actual pocket so the screw will be able to slide into it. To do this, all we're going to do is highlight the outside, then hold the Shift key down, select the first slot, and come over to this icon right here, which subtracts that little portion, and that creates the pocket. Now we're going to go ahead and repeat this for each one of them. Now this is one process that you actually have to do individually. But what happens if you select the wrong part first. Well, this is the result. You'll subtract the wrong part and it will disappear. So just hit the redo. It brings it back, and then you can go ahead and select the outside first, and then hold the shift key down and select that little slot and hit the icon. And that way it'll subtract the correct portion. It's actually subtracting one shape, A minus the B, to be able to create that little slot. And that really completes this leg extension for the FoxAlien. Now with this type of setup, you do need to have a left and right. Now I plan on putting the logo on here, so you could just flip it over and have it work just fine, but you'd lose the logo. Now it's time to add the logo, and I actually thought I had it in my art library, and I didn't. So very simply, I just went to the Google search, found the logo, brought it into Inkscape, and at this point, what I'm going to do is just come up here to the path, and I'm going to select the trace bitmap, and I'm going to go ahead and get that done. Now there's one thing. Usually I just reduce this down to the 2 colors and hit update, and it's done. But in this case, it did not happen. The only thing that it actually picked up was the black. So I had to go in and make another setting. So what I needed to do, instead of doing the trace bitmap with the brightness cutoff, I need to actually come over and select the edge detection. And that will be able to pick up the other ones. Now when I do the update, it does show everything. So now I can go ahead and hit the OK, bring that in, and then when I pull out the image, that is what I'm looking for. It gives all the edges nice, crisp, and short. At this point, I can go ahead and delete the original image and delete this image that didn't work. I'll go ahead and save this file now, and then I'll be able to open it into the Lightburn software. Now after saving this in the Inkscape, I went ahead and opened up this file now in the Lightburn software, and I want to be able to make some corrections. You can see this line is kind of a jagged line, and over here you see that this line just really doesn't connect the way that I want it to. Now what I want to be able to do is go through here. We're going to highlight everything, and I'm going to ungroup it because it came in all grouped together. And then we're going to look at this individual one. I think what I can do is take this inner line. That actually looks pretty good. Let's right click that and cut it. Yes, that cleaned it up really nice. And then I'm going to take this inner line and we'll do the same thing. Right click and cut that. And we'll do the same thing here. We'll cut it. And that will give me just a line when it engraves. So if I preview that, you can see it's just going to give me the line all the way through. The next step for this logo is to create the fill. Now I'm going to highlight the eyes, nose, and the ears. And I could have done this all at once, but I didn't. And I'm just going to put it on the blue layer, and that will create the fill that I need to have for the FoxAlien logo. At this point, the image looks great. However, the FoxAlien letters do not. Now, I could take the time and go through the node editing mode and make all the changes, but that's really too much work. It's much easier just to be able to use the text function in Lightburn, and I think the font of the Arial is going to be a very, very close match. And so I'm just going to type out the word FoxAlien, and from there, let's just go ahead and get it sized correctly. So I'm going to select that selection tool. We'll slide it up in place, and that's pretty close. Now I need to be able to stretch this out just a little bit, so I'll grab this handle, stretch it ever so slightly. That looks good. So at this point, I'm going to use this font. Let's slide it out of the way. I'll go ahead and delete the original, and then I'll put the FoxAlien back into that position. And that's the easiest, simplest way to be able to do it. Now I left the dot of the eye still in there, so I need to come back and delete that. Now remember, there was 2 lines. I got 1 line the first time, and then the second time I was able to get it. So the logo is actually finished. So I'm going to go ahead and put the FoxAlien portion on the fill as well, and now it's time to save it. So now I want to come back over to this one. This is my FoxAlien logo right here. So all I want to do now is take this and we'll just put it right into there. Of course, let's scale it down now to be able to fit into that opening. We'll make it a little smaller. It doesn't need to be that big. That looks real good. Now all we need to do is just be able to assign the different layers and get this set up to be able to engrave. And for this test, I'm going to be using the Sculfun S9 laser. Now I just recently got this honeycomb plate and I want to be able to try it out. Now I want to be able to put this plate down first to be able to protect the workbench underneath. And before I had this honeycomb set up, I just used a cooling rack for the cookies. And I think this worked well, but these holes were awful big. I like the honeycomb because it has a much closer grid, and I think that is going to give the wood additional support. I have a scrap piece of plywood. I'm going to set down right in here, and I'm going to set that just like that. I'm going to go ahead and drop that down, loosen the two screws on the back. We'll drop it down into place and have it focused, and that will be it. I tighten those back, pull that out. The Z-axis is now set. I'm going to go ahead and hook up the computer now. Okay, I have the red layer set up for my cutout, and that's going to be at the 200 millimeters per minute with 100% power. And the logo in blue is going to be set as a fill at 1270 and 50% power. Now, because I have not done this cut before, I wanted to do just a cutout. And I wanted to get the settings right and make sure that it's going to work. Now, of course, I'm going to frame it first, make sure that it's going to fit exactly on the plywood where I want it, and grab the glasses, and we're ready to go. It's important to note, though, this plywood is warped quite a bit. So that little piece of walnut on there helped to hold it down. I wanted to experiment just a little bit, and I did not have the output turned on. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the output on for the fill for the logo for the S9 Sculpfun laser, and I'm going to go ahead and put, whoops, I do want to leave this as where it will cut second. But what I want to do is change this. I want to increase the pass to 2, but since I've already done the 1, I'm going to go ahead and leave it at the 1. But after this completes, if it cuts all the way through, I'll go ahead and make that adjustment and put that at 2 passes. Now this time is going ahead and cutting the engraving part first and doing the logo. And that's turning out real pretty. I like that. And then it'll go ahead and cut the outline out one more time, and hopefully it'll go ahead and drop out this time. That's looking fantastic so far. I love it. So this is the second pass now starting. We'll be able to see if this cuts all the way through this time. A couple of things I want you to notice. One, I'm not using an air assist. And 2, look just how clean of a cut that this is. All right, let's see if this cut all the way through. Now this plywood is really warped. As you can see, with the 2 passes, that did real good. And we'll just punch these out. So 2 passes work perfect. And that's nice and clean cut. Now what I'm going to do is set up the FoxAlien 40-watt laser, and I'm going to cut out the feet for the FoxAlien with that machine, and we'll make a comparison. Not going to change the settings at all. Now I do want to try this, and I have a hole right here, and I am going to, let's just put it in the very top hole, slip this through. We'll put the nut on the back side. If I had all 4 of them, this little demonstration would be much easier. But I just couldn't resist. With the one, I wanted to see how it worked. and I'm actually quite impressed. This is going to be an amazing addition to this Sculfun S9 laser, having these extension feet. And when I get 3 more, I think that is going to work perfect to be able to raise this up much higher. And I can just turn this down like that and set it back down. So I think this was a huge success. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut out the other 3 so I have a complete set. Now that I know the settings and how the settings work, it's easy to set up the process to be able to cut out the other 3. And you can see here how it's cutting all the way through. Now with all 4 of the legs finished, this is absolutely fantastic. I don't know about you, but I think this is a whole lot better than having paint cans holding up the machine. But in the meantime, I want to go ahead and get the FoxAlien 40 watt laser, and let's do this same project and cut out the FoxAlien feet. All right, I've got the FoxAlien set up now, and I'm going to go ahead and we're going to cut this one, delete it out, and then we're going to bring the FoxAlien in. And I think what I'm going to do is just do a test. We're going to cut this first one and see how this goes. We have the same exact settings, 200 millimeters per minute on 100% power. We're going to go ahead now and go down to the laser. The laser is ready. All right, we're going to go ahead and frame it and see how this looks. That looks, see how that comes across. That looks real good. That's not going to waste a lot of the plywood. Now I'm going to go ahead and set this up for the 2 passes to begin with. You're going to see a big difference in how this cuts out. Part of it's my fault. This plywood is extremely warped, and I forgot to put that walnut board back on it. Now it's beginning the second pass, and you're going to really notice the difference in the quality of the cut. Too many times people always ask, what settings are you using? And they expect to get the same exact results and then wonder why they don't. Well, here is the reality firsthand why it doesn't work. Different machines do cut differently. In this case, with the FoxAlien, Air Assist is going to help, and I definitely need to speed it up and add more passes. Okay, so that completed the 2 passes. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn the output off for this, and I want to go ahead and engrave the logo just so that it's on there, and then we'll actually determine if this cut all the way through. Okay, I turned the output off. Now for the red layer, for the cutout layer, turned on the other layers. So here we go. We're going to see if that cuts and how this engraves. Now the engraving is turning out really good. I like this. Now the engraving, you'll see in just a moment, between the 2 machines are almost identical. The results are amazing, and it's beautiful work. The really big difference is how it cuts. And this is where the different machines will cut differently. Not that it can't do it, you just need to be able to experiment and get the correct settings. And that's the most important thing that people often forget. They want that shortcut. One of the things I want to point out too, I am using the fume extractor. Now granted, this is usually set up for the soldering machine, but this works extremely well. Now you're not going to be able to see it in the camera, but the smoke is definitely being pulled through this charcoal filter and going through this fume extractor. So I really like being able to use this. Now the engraving is done. Let's take a look and see just what type of results that we got with the FoxAlien. At this point you can see there's a lot more burning and charring, and it actually did not cut all the way through. Now part of this is my fault. I did not put that walnut board down to be able to secure it flat onto the area, and that causes a problem because now the focus is not correct. And so I will be doing this again. This also shows that different lasers require different settings, and that's just a fact of life. Now as far as the engraving is actually beautiful. This looks really, really good. I'm just not happy with the cutout at all. What I want to do is just see. Now it did come close. One more pass would have been able to get through. Now the real question is, will this fit? So let's go ahead and loosen this up, and we'll slip this right in there. We need to loosen this one just a little bit more. And yes, that fits in perfectly. Let me go ahead and tighten this down now. So the prototype works. The concept is perfect. It's just that the execution as to how this cut out was not real good. And you can see changing the height is very easy. Doing it this way is actually easier to change than on the S9, but this definitely works well. I like this. So that'll give you the height that you need. I'm going to go ahead, and it's easy to be able to adjust. You just slide it right in and tighten it for any height that you need. I'm real happy that I did the leg extension for these two machines. The Sculfun S9 laser is working fantastic, as is the leg extensions for the FoxAlien. Now, as far as the FoxAlien 40-watt laser, yes, it did cut fine. I did have to adjust the speeds. Of course, I had to speed it up. It was just cutting way too slow and burning the wood. But by speeding up the laser, making it where it was 3 passes, and putting the air assist on, did wonders. Now, I didn't catch the video of that one because the battery died. I wasn't aware of it. In fact, the battery's almost dead now. But at any rate, this was a fantastic video to be able to do for you guys, and I hope that you will do the same in your shop to be able to make these leg extensions for your lasers. The other thing I wanted to mention to you is that this honeycomb board really works well. The only thing I wish is that it was larger, but it supports the wood extremely well. In fact, it supports the wood much better than the cooling rack for the cookie sheet, because that has a tendency to bend and move, and it just doesn't give the support that this honeycomb board does. So consider that. Depending on the size of the projects that you make, this may be perfect, but like I said, I wish this was a little bit bigger. Well, thank you for watching today. I hope that you found this video very interesting, comparing the two lasers side by side. And if you did like this video, by all means, please give me a thumbs up. And while you're there, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the little bell notification next to it. It really does help out the channel. I look forward to seeing each and every one of you in the next project that I do, whatever that may be. So until next time, bye-bye.